MrPokke here, back with another video, and on today's episode of Early Access Review, we are going to be taking a look at Yunli in the Creator Experience Program. Creator Experience Program, they are not indicative of the final result, so might expect some changes here and there. I would say that I am pretty pleasantly surprised with Yunli's performance, especially in Memory of Chaos, and without further ado, let's get into today's content.
Subscribe!
Alright, jumping straight into the character kits, I'm not gonna yap too much because Yunli is a fundamentally extremely easy to comprehend unit. You can pretty much think of her as a Clara. So basic attack, Gale, Spin, Somersault, nothing too crazy, just a normal basic attack. Doesn't have any relation to her kit whatsoever. Her skill is gonna be recovering 30% of Yunli's attack plus 200, dealing physical damage equivalent to 120% of her attack to a single target and 60% to adjacent target. Pretty much, I would say that this skill's only purpose is to provide us with a couple of healing as well as the energy regeneration, which is 30 energy, to allow us to use the ultimate a lot more frequently, right? But overall, the damage factor from the skill is going to be very low, so players shouldn't be expecting too much from her skill. The main bread and butter from Yunli is going to be coming from her talent as well as her ultimate. But let's just talk about her talent first. Pretty much exactly the same as Clara's talent, which is when Yunli gets attacked by an enemy target, she will additionally regenerate 15 energy and immediately launch a counter on the attacker, dealing physical damage equal to 120% of the attack to the attacker and 60% to adjacent targets. If there's no immediate target to counter, then the counter will target a random enemy instead. One thing to note is that our talent will regenerate 15 energy upon getting attacked, and the counter attack will generate another additional 5 energy for a total of 20 energy whenever Yunli gets hit from the counter. As long as she gets hit and does a counter, she will generate this 20 energy, which means that area of effect abilities, which is gonna be very good for Yunli if she keep getting hit repeatedly. It will allow us to have a pretty high ultimate uptime, and this is gonna be going on to our next kit, which is Earthbind Ether Break. Maximum energy is 240. You can consume 120 energy to enter into the parry state and taunt all enemies, lasting until the end of the next ally or the enemy's turn. Keep in mind, this is the next ally or the enemy's turn. So even if the enemies are very slow, if your allies goes next and the enemy target does not hit Yunli, she's gonna let go of this, right? The next counter will have an increased 100% crit damage. If she's attacked during this stage, which is gonna be by the enemy turn, she will launch Intuit Cow. If she's not attacked, which means it's gonna be our support, our allies turn, then she will launch Intuit Slash. Slash is the one that does less damage, but Cow is the one that does way more damage. Both of them will do 220% blast damage, but the Intuit Cow would do an additional 6 times 72% bounce hits, which is a whopping 432% additional multiplier, right? If it is on a single target, there's an additional 432% on the single target, which makes her burst potential extremely high. Keep in mind that the damage from our enhanced counter is considered as both an ultimate damage as well as a follow-up damage. Enhanced counters also generates 10 energy. The way with how this ultimate works is the ultimate itself is a parry. You want to cast it right before the enemy's turn, and then you make them launch their attacks. So this is kind of the situations where action value and pressing your ultimate right before the enemy's turn is gonna be quite crucial, because this way you can greatly increase the chance of Yunli using Intuit Cow instead of Intuit Slash, which will drastically increase our damage. If you fail to trigger a parry with this skill, then the weaker attack Intuit Slash will be launched on a random enemy. Right, so keep that in mind. The ultimate cast refunds 5 energy, and you get energy from getting attacked on top of the 15 additional energy refund from the talent, and then the enhanced counter additionally regenerates another 10 energy. TLDR, you will notice that for Yunli, she can generate this ultimate stack very quickly, right? Especially if you want to use her with another unit such as King Yun, which we're going to be talking about later, right? You're also incentivized for Yunli to build more crit rate because, like I mentioned in the skill over here, the enhanced counters, they have an additional 100% crit damage. So that's going to be very nice, right? And since our Yunli's maximum energy is actually 240, energy refund effects such as Huo's ultimate or effects that activates ultimates will be based on a 240 energy cap. And her energy at the start of a Memory of Chaos is gonna be at 120, which means she can instantly start off one ultimate at the ready, good to go. So those are her overall abilities. Jumping on into some of her traces, 28% attack, 80% HP, and 6.7% crit rate. Nothing too crazy. Crit rate is going to be very, very nice. 80% HP. We would have preferred if it was something a little bit more offensive, but you know, we already got the crit rate trace, so not too much to be complained about over here. Fury Wheel. After each use of Intuit Slash, the next Intuit Slash will be replaced by Intuit Cow. This trait is extremely important, especially for players who don't really get the timing right, or more specifically, against bosses that are weakness broken, right? So this is basically a parry pity. If you fail to parry twice, the second enhanced counter will be the powerful counter instead of the weaker one, right? So this is going to be extremely prevalent for enemies like Apocalyptic Shadows for the foreseeable future, because they are currently based on weakness breaking for now and refunding energy after you weakness break in Apocalyptic Shadows. But because the bosses are weakness broken, they cannot hit Yunli, which means that during this time, Yunli will not be able to get off the big boy Intuit Cow instead. So with this trace, you can still cast a double ultimate in order to trigger our Intuit Cow. So that's going to be very, very nice for our damage numbers, right? Then another trace, Demon Quell, while in the parry state, resists crowd control debuffs received and reduces damage taken by 20%. That's the overall quality of life. This might see some pretty interesting like Yunli solo clears in like Swarm Disaster, Divergent Universe, that kind of stuff, right? So it is definitely quite possible. True Sunder, when using a counter, increase attack by 30%, lasting 1 turn, pretty much almost 100% uptime, so you basically get a 30% attack buff. One last thing, technique Posterior Precedence launches an enhanced counter into a cow at the start of the fight, and the damage done by this attack is increased by 80%. So it is basically immediately using Yunli's full ultimate counter at the start. Although this on paper sounds absolutely ridiculous, especially because, you know, 432% multiplier, absolutely insane, right? But there's one drawback, which is Yunli does not gain any buffs at the start. Fundamentally, Yunli still kind of functions as like a hypercarry. You want to buff her up in order to make her counter deal more damage. But with this technique, none of our support buffs are going to be applied. And even though we gain this 80% damage bonus from this counter, do not expect some absolutely redonkulous damage, right? So something to keep in mind. Also, we do generate this 10 energy from launching the ultimate counter, which means that at the start of the battle, Yunli is going to instantly start off with 130 energy. So very, very nice. Now, jumping into Yunli's Lightcones, Dance at Sunset is going to be a signature Lightcone, greatly increases chance to be attacked, plus 36% crit damage, and when using ultimate, plus 36% follow-up damage for 2 turns, up to 2 stacks. Now, this sentence over here greatly increased chance to be attacked. If we were to take the exact same quote from Clara's ultimate, which we know from our official Hoyo website, it is going to be a 500% taunt value increase if they are the exact same wording, right? So if this is exactly the same, what exactly is this additional 500% taunt value? So in a team comp of Yunli with 2 Harmony and 1 Abundance, which is our classic hypercarry setup, her chance to be attacked is going to be roughly 29.4%, right? With this 500% taunt buff, now Yunli's chance to be attacked is going to be at 71.4%, more than doubling, almost tripling the odds of Yunli getting hit. Additional chance of getting hit is extremely important for Yunli, even though she does have a guaranteed taunt from the ultimate. Why? Because Yunli's talent, which is whenever she gets hit and she does a counter, regenerates an additional 20 energy on top of the energy from getting attacked. With this Lightcone, Yunli's odds of getting hit drastically increases, which also drastically improves our ultimate uptime, which is kind of like the whole bread and butter of Yunli's kit, especially the enhanced ultimate Intuit Cow, right? So that's where majority of Yunli's damage is going to be coming from. On top of this Lightcone also gets 36% crit damage and 72% follow-up damage on top of the taunt to help deal with the aggro RNG. And this Lightcone is also going to be an extremely powerful Lightcone for Clara. You can also run links with Yunli, who can provide taunt buffs if you do not have this signature Lightcone. Although, if you were to use this Lightcone on Clara, you do need to out twice every 2 turns to maintain the 72% follow-up damage buff. And the taunt is not super important on Clara since she already has a 500% taunt value increase from the ultimate. It basically increases the chance from 71% to pretty much 81%, right? It's not like a suddenly from a guaranteed taunt, right? So it is drastically diminished values, right? If we are not going to be running Yunli's signature Lightcone, then Brighter Than the Sun, which is going to be Imbibitor Luna's signature Lightcone, is also a pretty interesting option because Yunli can use her basic attack instead of a skill all the time, since she does already generate a lot of energy from our counters. And this Lightcone specifically grants us energy regeneration on top of this crit rate buff, right? So they're all very, very useful on Yunli. Other than that, then on the 4 of an Aeon unreachable side, as well as something irreplaceable, they're all pretty decent alternatives, with 4 of an Aeon generally being the best if the break buff can be maintained, right? If you can break with Yunli, that's going to be very, very good. Once again, 4 of an Aeon proving to be an absolutely ridiculous 5-star destruction-free Earth-style Lightcone, right? Blade's signature Lightcone makes building crit on Yunli a lot easier, and like I mentioned, building crit on Yunli is going to be pretty important because we do get a 100% crit damage buff from our ultimate. So that is going to be that for our Lightcone options. Then jump into our Relics, our 4-piece set. Finally, we actually have something usable for the Winged Soaring Valerius. 12% attack, 6% crit rate, and 36% ultimate damage after using flop. This is pretty much built for Yunli. Nothing too much to be said. Definitely best in slot. Damage dealt by her enhanced counters are considered both ultimate damage and follow-up damage, so she can definitely use this set to the best of the abilities. If we are not going to be running the Winged Soaring Valerius, then the Ash Blazing Grand Duke is going to be the next best in slot. The full enhanced counters, keep in mind, it does deal 6 instances of different damages with Intuit Cow, so it does count as multiple instances of damage. And against multiple targets, this set can grant up to 48% attack and 20% follow-up damage. Although normal counters and Intuit Slash, which is the weaker one, can only reset it back to 1 to 3 stacks, right? So that's not going to be too good. But if you can get it to the full stacks, then very, very nice. You can consider 4-piece Longevous Disciple, which is going to be Blade set. If you get hit, get more crit rate, not too bad. Or you can run the 4-piece Champion of True Bossing for physical damage buff, or you can just run any of the 2-piece combinations. But other than that, Ash Blazing Grand Duke as well as Wind Soaring Valerius is definitely going to be the best in slot option. Then for her planar ornaments, you run Dynasty of Wolf is definitely going to be a best in slot. Full stacks is strictly stronger than Inert Salsoto, but it does have a ramp up time, so something to consider, and you do need quite a little bit of crit rate for Yunli. Other than that, Inert Salsoto always a very, very consistent option since Yunli does need a lot of crit rate, right? Also worth noting that for enhanced counters, they are considered both ultimate and follow-up damage. They cannot benefit from the same stat twice, right? It is only going to be a 15% follow-up or ultimate damage. So it is only 15% instead of 30%. Talking about Eidolon, Eidolon 1 and Eidolon 6, they are pretty much the biggest increments. Increase damage dealt by Intuit Slash and Cow by 20%, and increase the additional damage of instance for Intuit Cow by 3, which basically changes from 6 instances of damage into 9 instances of damage. This is one of the biggest damage increase to Yunli's overall damage kit because of this additional 3 bounce hits. On a single target, the extra bounce allows our multiplier value to go from 652% to 868%. So it is a extremely high damage increase, and this is going to be before the 20% damage bonus, right? So overall, Eidolon 1 is going to be the biggest increment in damage output. Eidolon 2, ignore 20% of target's defense. I think we don't really need to say that. Defense, ignore exponential damage scaling, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. But keep in mind that for Yunli specifically, you might find a little bit of a difficulty stacking on this ignore 20% defense because currently her teammates that I found anyways, best in slot are usually going to be our Hypercarry supports, like our Bronya, like our Teen Yun, as well as our Robin. So there might not be a lot of opportunity to stack on this 20% ignore, unless you have units like E2 Sparkle, E1 Rame. E4, after launching into a Slash or Cow, increase units effect rate by 50%. Honestly, nothing too crazy, just a comfort Eidolon to prevent really from getting crowd control. E6, walk in Blade Talk in Zetor while parry is active. If an enemy actively uses their abilities, regardless if they hit Yunli or not, it will trigger into a Cow and remove the parry effect. When dealing damage via into a Slash or Cow, increase crit rate by 50% and physical res pen by 20%. I will keep it a buck. This is a pretty boring Eidolon 6, if I can say it to myself. This basically makes her trigger the powerful counter, which is the Intuit Cow, regardless if the enemy attacks her or not. But she still needs to cast her ultimate before the enemy's turn. It does help deal with enemies that do not attack her. For example, any DOT enemies or enemies that come from self-bars like Monkey, before he ramps up his hit, it's going to be a charge up, right? So at this specific juncture, if Yunli were to use this counter, it will count as an Intuit Cow. Other than that, it's going to be the plus 50% crit rate and 20% res pen on the enhanced counters. But I would say that this Eidolon 6, it is not as crazy or significant compared to some of our previous DPS Eidolon 6s, namely a Firefly, Aircron, or like even Imbibitor Runic, if you want to talk about that, right? Quick little team comms. From what I've tried with Yunli, I felt that the overall team comms with Yunli that I have the best experience with so far, with a sustain, is going to be Yunli, Tingyun, Robin, and Huohuo. I'm going to be using this team to kind of feature all of my Memory of Chaos runs later on. The reason why this combo works so well is number one, Huohuo's 20% max energy, it buffs Yunli based on 240 energy, which gives her a much higher buff than normal. Then Tingyun, you know, as usual, 60 energy is going to be very, very good for Yunli. And the overall fundamental mechanics for Yunli is to generate as much Intuit cows as possible, which is going to be from getting as much energy as possible, right? So units like Huohuo and Tingyun is going to be excellent for Yunli. Then Robin is just overall, I feel that Robin just gave me a little bit more benefits compared to Bronya. Extra turn units such as Bronya, Sparkle, Robin, they can all work really well with Yunli, but I felt that Robin was kind of the best slot here because the extra turn does benefit both Huohuo and Tingyun as well, right? So it allows us to generate and rotate our rotations faster, quicker, generate more energy, and just overall help us ramp up Yunli's own ultimate much faster instead of compared to Bronya and Sparkle, which only buffs a single unit. So overall, that is gonna be the best sort of team comms for Yunli that I have found myself, right? For debuffers like Pella, Silverwolf, I felt that they were not as fluid because Tingyun and Huohuo, they are already just so synergistic with Yunli because of the energy. And the last slot, having the additional turn helps us generate energy much faster. So if you're not running units like Bronya, Sparkle, or Robin, and if you want to use debuffers, although they apply debuffs to the enemy and allows to deal more damage, I found that getting more turns on Tingyun generally translates to a higher damage output overall, instead of granting debuffs on the enemy team. So those are going to be my overall team recommendations for Yunli. And now with that out of the way, let's move on to Yunli's actual performance in some of the stages that I found her in. Alright, first team, Yunli, Robin, Tingyun, and Huohuo. Now I'm just going to let it play while we just kind of yap about this. I feel like this team is kind of the one that pretty much benefits Yunli to the most powerful extent. First of all, like I mentioned, Huohuo's 20% maximum energy buff, it covers as Yunli from a 240 energy baseline, right? So it does recover more energy compared to some of our other DPS units. Tingyun is a excellent pick with Yunli because Yunli's majority of the damage is going to be tied to Intuit Cow, which is the ultimate. So we really appreciate Tingyun's ultimate energy buff. So that's going to be there. And Robin, you know, I feel that Robin, it is kind of like the more jacked up version of Bronya because she pretty much gives our entire team this additional turn, not just our main DPS. And like, you know, extra turns from our support, like our Tingyun, like our Huohuo, it can always be beneficial because it basically increases the overall rotations for the team, right? And then you can see that Tingyun's damage output is honestly pretty consistent so far, right? We do get additional help from our Robin, giving our energy to Yunli from our Tingyun, and you can see that we are already almost at full energy once again. So once more time we cast our skill over here, breaking our target, we are going to be able to get the ultimate once again. Boom, hit this over here, pop off at another big counter. Once we get hit here, it's going to be a very massive, oh my goodness, big parry into card, 381,000 damage, absolutely demolishing the first phase. And this is with just Robin and Tingyun. So if you want to run a triple support, do expect this damage to go up even higher. So right now, we're just going to be doing our basic stuff. Huohuo is going to be generating a little bit of skill points. Yunli going ahead, casting our skill to kind of just break the targets a little bit more. Casting our ultimate right before Argenti, because like I mentioned, you do want to get this right before the enemy's turn so that we can trigger into it, Cow. Big hit, 333,000 damage, absolutely demolishing the health bars. And once again, we are getting back to our ultimate. So at this point over here, I definitely know I'm not going to be able to zero cycle. So I'm just going to pop off a heal, pop off an ultimate, pass a Huohuo ultimate to buff up our entire team. Unfortunately, I didn't have quite enough for Tingyun's ultimate to cast her buff on the Yunli. So I'm going to miss that a little bit. So I'm not going to be bothered using Robin's ultimate there. Popping off this ultimate, 220,000, but because it's kind of split all over the place, so the damage didn't really focus on the Argenti, so it's a little bit of a potential flaw. Popping off our Robin's ultimate right here, giving us our additional hit. Tingyun is going to go ahead, basic attack, and we do have the ultimate ready to give it back to Yunli. Huohuo going for the basic attack into a skill for an ultimate to cast right before Argenti takes a turn. Popping this ultimate on Tingyun to Yunli to buff our damage a little bit more, and cast our ultimate right before Argenti. Getting ready for the parry. Boom. Big hit. 310,000 and casting another ultimate, getting ready for another parry. You can see that in the similar turn, in the exact same turn, we can pop off 2 parries while the enemy takes turns. Absolutely demolishing health, but I would say this would be a almost 0 cycle if I had a little bit more damage over here. But I would say that the damage for Yunli is honestly very, very nice, and the base attack is basically Lion's Maul, right? Quite nice over there. So overall, a 1 cycle clear. We're running our E0 S1 Yunli. Now I'm going to be showcasing our E1 S1 Yunli and pretty much see the difference of the ultimate damage. Just now we can see that E0 S1 it was roughly 300,000-ish, 330,000 with all of the buffs. So I'm just going to show you guys a quick little comparison for E1 S1 and E0 S1. Alright, so now this is going to be the counter damage right before the Ascending Shadow does another hit. I'm going to cast my ultimate, get a hit. How much is it going to be? Boom, bit into account, 444,000 damage. So that is gonna be the rough difference between our E0 S1 Yunli as well as our E1 S1 Yunli, right? But overall, towards the end, the final clear speed was still roughly the same because Argenti is just way too beefy of a boy, so I couldn't really get the 0 cycle even with the E1. It's still a little bit off. But overall, I would say that the damage increase from E0 to E1, I would say it is a pretty sizable damage increase, especially when you're up against only a single target and all of the damage can pretty much focus on the one target alone, right? The counter damage has really gone up drastically by almost pretty much like 100,000, which is absolutely ridiculous. Getting this hit over here, Argenti, we're going to do the exact same shit. Boom, big hit, boom, hit. Now our counter is just consistently more than 400,000 damage. So the overall damage increase from a 330,000 to 400,000, it is very, very nice from our E0 to E1. Then one last thing I'm just going to be showing you guys is going to be our E6 S5 full showcase for our Yunli over here. Not too much to be said. I just want to show you guys a little bit of a damage output. Big hit from the counter, Bava from Ting Yun, and just kind of goof around and show you guys exactly what she's capable of running this Robin, Ting Yun, and Huo Huo team. Alright, this is pretty much the best in slot in my opinion. So that is going to be that. Okay, big hit over here. Causing the ultimate right before the counter. Boom! 435. You can see that this E6, even though the Decaying Shadow, she didn't hit us, but because of the E6, she still triggers the enhanced parry instead of doing the Intuit slash instead, right? So something to keep in mind. And now we pretty much just, the rest of the stuff is kind of the same. Is the E6 basically gives us the additional 15% crit rate and 25% physical rest pen, and pretty much guaranteeing us to trigger Intuit Call no matter what actions the enemy take, especially against enemies that have the charge up action, right? Such as the Decaying Shadow you can see over there. So Huo going for the buff, Yunli just going for the normal stuff, kill into an ultimate, and then we give the additional buff from Huo to Yunli for the attack buff. Argenti is gonna take an action over here, but right before we can just buff it up with Ting Yun as well. Gonna give her the absolute highest damage. So this charge over here, we are also gonna trigger into a cow, so that's the biggest difference. Absolutely demolishing at 918,000 damage, absolutely redonkulous. And then we're gonna trigger another ultimate to cast up our second counter. He's gonna summon, but because this is gonna be of E6, we can once again cast our Intuit Call instead of Intuit Slash. So that's gonna be the main difference between E0 and E6, specifically E6 against enemies that are using the charge up abilities instead of the attacking abilities, right? So we're always going to be casting our Intuit Call. Note that this is only for enemy actions, right? This is only for enemy actions, so keep that in mind. It is not going to be considered for our team's action, only for enemy actions, right? So very, very important. Alright, one last thing before I move on is pretty much going to be Yunli in a Apocalyptic Shadows station, basically how she functions in this and new endgame mode for MiHoYo, right? I would say that Yunli's overall performance in Apocalyptic Shadows, it leaves a little bit more to be desired because this mode by itself, it does hinge on weakness breaking the enemy. And since enemies that are weakness broken, they can't hit you. So even though we do have the additional trace to basically guarantee the soft pity of the Intuit Call, the damage output is still definitely a lot lower as we would like it to be, right? Because the enemies that we do broken, we can't trigger our talent, which generates our energy to have a high ultimate uptime. So overall, the damage output from Yunli in the Apocalyptic Shadows, it is gonna be a little bit lower than expected, right? So that's gonna be that. This should give us the final clear right here. Popping this off. Yunli is gonna go ahead, pass this big Intuit Call, breaking the target with this skill over here, refund the energy, full energy ultimate, but we pretty much already got it. So it is going to be a roughly 3,372 action value. So I would say that it still technically clear, right? Still above average clear, but don't expect some crazy stats. Although keep in mind this is with the creator experience server, so the relics are not of the best quality, right? So something to keep in mind. And with that, we have pretty much come to the end of my early access review for Yunli. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, or join the Discord, discord.gg/MrPokke. We're a very active community about Honkai Starrail on a daily basis. Wanna check my stream, twitch.tv/MrPokke, YouTube.com/MrPokke. I'm streaming today, similar with the Discord. So that's all I have today. All the best for your Yunli pools, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.